Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the lab accident. You guys had the choice to vote in my recent poll, and with, at the time of recording, a 41% vote for the lab accident, we're going to take a look at him. This is the guy you can see on screen right now, and as always, I'm going to show you some gameplay in the first half of the video, and in the second half of the video we're going to take a look at the perks, mutations, equipment and everything else. So let's get right into it. What this character is going to be about is we are playing a automatic melee character, and in addition to that we are going to have a big focus on using VATS. There's a few nice synergies going on when it comes to VATS and automatic melee weapons, and yeah, this is what we're going to take a look at here. So what we specifically going to utilize a lot is the legendary perk Hack and Slash, as you can probably imagine. Now, the day that legendary effects were added as a possibility to automatic melee weapons, I instantly wanted to do something like this here. And yeah, I decided to use the drill because this is probably my favorite of the automatic melee weapons, just because of how wacky and stupid it is as a weapon. And yeah, I ultimately found that I had a lot of fun with this build, and what this is basically all about is using short bursts of really high DPS VATS attacks. So you're not going to stay in VATS forever with this weapon. You can stay in VATS for quite a while, especially if you were to really invest very much into agility and everything. You could probably have a very sustained VATS chain, but this is not what I wanted to do here. I was focusing on getting very high action point refresh, so we can attack an enemy, basically get out of AP, run out of AP, and refresh it within 1 or 2 seconds. And yeah, that's how all of it went. I really like it. It actually has a lot of power. Now, where it falls a little bit flat is obviously with tougher targets that you can't down in a single VATS attack. So you have to, yeah, wait for it to refresh and everything. But for, I would say, like 95% of day-to-day gameplay, it is a really nice build. And even then, even if you are fighting bosses, you won't solo them, but you can really participate in a meaningful way when you are at an event. So ultimately, very nice build, very nice overall vibe with it. I really like it, and also very effective. I have a lot of fun with it. The weapon we are using here is a Vampire's Power Attack Drill with less VATS action point cost. I have experimented with a VATS crit version of the weapon, since we are obviously using a few crits here and there, but ultimately, yeah, the extra damage you get from power attack damage is really nice. For those of you who don't know, probably most will at this point, whenever you are using a automatic melee weapon, every single attack counts as a power attack, so getting the legendary effect of extra power attack damage will ultimately just increase your overall damage with the weapon. Now, a big controversial topic when it comes to automatic melee weapons is the topic of swing speed. Does it affect it? Does it not? Does it only affect it in third person? Does it only affect it in first person? Just as a little bit of a disclaimer, I've read a little bit into it. I've done some testing on my own, and from what I can tell, when it comes to two-handed melee weapons, the auto axe, the chainsaw, the boss blade, in first person you basically have maximum swing speed no matter what you do. In third person, it is affected by extra swing speed or martial artist. And when it comes to gladiator weapons, I feel like increasing swing speed does actually do something. The way I tested it, and I want to emphasize here that it's not a scientific test or anything, I just went against tough enemies and kind of looked how it went with and without swing speed increase. And overall I felt like increasing swing speed was definitely doing something, not a whole lot, so that's why ultimately I went with using a martial artist on this build. So yeah, just keep it with a little bit of a grain of salt. It may not do a whole lot, but ultimately that's one perk you may or may not want to use. The rest I'm pretty sure about here. One other thing I'm not so sure about, which is something I have noticed every now and then when playing, it's just a little bit hard to actually test that, is that we are using a full set of Thorn Armor, which gives your melee attacks bleed damage. Obviously this works very well with a fast attacking weapon, synergizes very well, just gives you an overall extra DPS. And when enemies attack you, they will make themselves bleeding. Now, the thing I noticed is whenever I went against ghouls or groups of Scorched and everything, I felt like when hack and slash was going on, that enemies affected by the explosion that comes from hack and slash were actually taking bleed damage. So I have the feeling that the bleed damage from the Thorn armor carries over through these explosions. However, that's not something I'm 100% sure on. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I was speculating on in this build. So now we can really talk about the straight facts here. So overall, yeah, you have pretty great DPS. By the way, it's a little bit of a hassle at this moment, but yeah, now the Scorch Beast decided to land, and we can wreak havoc on it. Obviously, here you can see this is what I was talking about when it really comes to boss type enemies or tougher enemies that you can't down in a single VATS attack. It's a little bit of a nuisance, but hopefully we can take this guy out before he takes up again, and to me it looks like that's the case, so yeah. Another disclaimer about this, I'm probably a little bit late here, but if you are someone who is sensitive to flickering lights or gets motion sick pretty quickly, you might want to take a step back at this build here. It's not exactly perfect for that condition. You have a ton of explosions going on in your day-to-day playstyle, and this can really be a little bit distracting. I found that in third person it affected me way less than in first person, so yeah, that's why you will see me play in third person every now and then. But other than that, yeah, it's a really nice gameplay feeling to use this build. One thing that's coming up pretty soon, which will be a little bit of a challenge, is fighting the Assaultron that's usually hanging out at the Red Rocket truck stop. Just because, yeah, we typically can't VATS it. Most of the time it is in stealth mode, and therefore, yeah, we have to surprise it. And this build is not exactly a tank. It's tanky enough to get through pretty much all of the situations you encounter in a day-to-day game. But even though we are using a Vampire's version of the weapon, you can't face tank everything. Especially Assaultrons, I found that can be a little bit of a trouble. But that could be mitigated. One thing I have to say in advance is that the Thorn armor we are using, you can obviously modify it if you buy the modifications from the Enclave terminals, which on this occasion I didn't do. Just because on this character I can't actually, and I didn't want to go through the hassle of buying them on another character, then transferring them to this character here, and yeah, that's why in terms of defense rating we could actually do a good bit better than we actually are, but yeah, that's just a little bit of a disclaimer. Now just let me have a look here. I can't really see the Assaultron, doesn't mean it is not here, but yeah, maybe we get lucky and it is not here, but yeah, looks like it on this occasion. When it comes to Mr. Gutsies and so on, obviously you want to get close enough to attack them pretty fast, just so you can get your healing off and tank them a little bit better, but that's pretty much it. Like, yeah, most enemies go down very quickly. Even level 100 super mutants, you can really chew through their health very quickly, which is nice. But obviously, where this build shines is in fighting groups of enemies that are relatively flimsy. Groups of ghouls. That's basically the most fun thing you can have when you're playing with this build. Cleaning the White Springs area is a ton of fun. And yeah, when it comes to the armor and our action point refresh, it's just that we do have a full set of AP refresh armor. That was the thing I was focusing on. Now, when it comes to the AP refresh legendary effect, pretty much after 3 pieces, as far as I know, it starts to really improve relatively slowly. So that's something you can keep in mind. Maybe you want to have 2 pieces of armor that have extra strength or something, but I still decided to go with a full set, even though that might not be the most efficient thing to do here. And rest of the effects is basically just some mix-matched Slayer armor. I think I do have 2 Hunters pieces, 1 Exterminator's piece, 1 Mutant Slayer's piece, and yeah, and one other thing. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that wasn't really a focus of this build. So keep in mind you can make this guy way more tankier, and yeah, that's basically it. But in terms of DPS, I really think there isn't a whole lot to do here other than increasing your strength by a ton. May that be due to low health build or something, but for a full health build, this is pretty much as much DPS as you get without buffs. Temporary buffs to this. Speaking of which, we don't use them here, but obviously you can improve your DPS a lot using Mutant Hound Chops, Deathclaw Stake and everything. We will, when we talk about mutations, we will see that I made a little bit of a mistake there, which is that I do have the Herbivore mutation on and not the Carnivore one. For some reason, I'm not quite sure how that happened. But yeah, since we're not using any temporary buffs during the video, this doesn't make too much of a difference, and I will talk about that later anyways. But yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot to say here. As you can see, probably we do chew through enemies pretty quickly. Now, when it comes to hack and slash and automatic melee builds, there's one little bit of a controversy yet again, which is that people say hack and slash doesn't really work with automatic melee weapons, but in my experience it does. If you are attacking an enemy for longer, it starts to feel like it procs less and less, but that's not really a problem because you're not staying in VATS for that long typically, and yeah, usually you run out of AP pretty fast and then re-enter VATS anyways. And yeah, another noteworthy thing is that this is one of the very few builds where I'm not using Bird Bones, because I really want to have no mutation that debuffs my strength on this occasion for some reason. And yeah, that's basically it. So keep in mind we could also stay a little bit longer in VATS. We do have a debuff to our action points from Scaly Skin, and we could have more action points just from using Bird Bones, but that would mean a debuff to our strength, which usually I'm not too concerned about, but on this occasion it felt like a good thing to do. Now, one other thing is, whenever I use Vampires builds, there's a good chance that I will use Ricochet as a perk in luck, just so we can get some passive healing going on from ranged attacks. But on this occasion I just didn't really have the perk points to use it, and therefore I didn't use it. So overall, yet again, something we could make our character a little bit more tanky with, but really the focus of this build was just getting these high DPS bursts of damage going on. And yeah, see the Deathclaw, it's typically pretty flimsy, especially the level 60 version here. You can really chew through it relatively quickly, and so we did. So yeah, not a big problem. Now, as you can see here, this is something I'm just not used to be honest, to ascend this cliff like this, like with this much caution, just because, yeah, whenever you have Bird Bones on, it's not something you have to worry about. But keep in mind, playing without Bird Bones, it's actually changing things a little bit in day-to-day maneuvering, I would say. But yeah, level 60 super mutants, no problem whatsoever at this occasion. And yeah, also one thing to note is that hack and slash not only gives you this area of effect damage, but as far as I'm aware and as far as I read online, it also is applying to the enemy you are attacking. So whenever it goes off, you just basically get extra damage. And yeah, no way to boost the damage from hack and slash, by the way, so Demo Expert, Grenadier, all of that stuff probably shouldn't work. So yeah, you won't see any perks in that regard. But yeah, let's clean out the courtyard here and then we're done and can take a look at everything. Yeah, going fine so far. One thing I really like to talk to you about is I rearranged my room a little bit, and now I do have room to use my microphone actually. So I really hope that the audio quality should be a lot better than you are used to with my shitty headset. If you feel like there's a difference, just let me know in the comments. I really appreciate all of your comments, by the way, guys. I really appreciate that you took part in the vote. And I really want to do a little bit more polls in the future. It's a feature I really like in YouTube, but so far I haven't really been able to utilize it for the simple reason that you need a little bit of a threshold in terms of subscribers, as far as I'm aware, before you can use polls. So finally I can do that, and that's all thanks to you, and thank you very much for that. Really appreciate all your support. So here we have a guy, but he attacked us so in melee, so he will take damage from our Thorn Armor. I thought for a second that this would be a good situation to show what I meant with the passive bleeding damage going off from our explosions, but yeah, sadly, doesn't matter too much. Let's see how much the bleeding does. It's not the world, it's just a little bit of a buff. Most of the times you're not really going to utilize it, it's just going to be effective in groups, basically. And yeah. Condition of the weapon, by the way, is pretty great. I don't have to worry about it a lot. I do use Makeshift Warrior, as I pretty much always do, but that being said, it's not necessary, in my opinion. So that's something you could spare perk points at. I think I heard a mutant hound howling somewhere in the distance, so I really want to find that guy before we move on, so they don't surprise us when we are talking, but yeah. There's another guy. Legendary 3-star. This could actually be a little bit of a challenge. When these guys get their attacks in, they can actually have a lot of DPS against you, but still relative ease. Took a little bit longer just due to the high health pool, but that's basically it. And by the way, another thing to mention about the microphone situation. One thing I have to get used to is keeping my head in a general direction so that the audio volume is more stable, but that's just something I have to get used to. Hopefully in the future it's not going to be that different. And yeah, that was it. Let's take another look at our guy here. Really dig the aesthetic, it's kind of a psychopath. And yeah, that being said, we're now going to take a look at our mutations, starting off with Grounded. Extra energy resistance is nice to have, just making us a little bit more tanky for basically no downside because we're not using any energy guns, so the debuff doesn't affect us at all. Then we do have the Herbivore mutation, which, as I already mentioned, is a mistake here. This wasn't supposed to be here. We just wanted to have either Carnivore or nothing. Doesn't really matter because we're not using any buffs, but keep in mind if you want to use it, use Carnivore so you can make use out of the good buffs for melee damage. As I said, Mud Chops and not Mud Chops, Super Mutant Hound Chops and Deathclaw Steak, Yaogwai Steak, you name it. Then we do have Herd Mentality, which gives us a boost to our special stats whenever we are grouped and a downside whenever we are not grouped, so very easy. Even if you are alone on a server, just make a team like I did here and you would have extra special. On this occasion, not that much. We are at 26 strength. It could go higher as far as I'm aware when we are in a bigger group, but yeah. No, I'm talking shit, sorry, it's just +2, but still, it's a little bit of a damage buff due to buffing our strength. Then we do have Marsupial, which is a no-brainer, just more jump height, which is always nice. Obviously the carry weight is not bad, but yeah, it's really jumping higher that makes the deal for us here. Then we do have Scaly Skin. Now this is a little bit of pretty much the only debuff that actually affects us a little bit here, which is we do have a little bit less action points, 50 action points. It's quite a lot, as you can see down there. We are running around with 170, so 50 more, that would be quite a significant portion. But ultimately, as I said, we're all about having these short bursts of high DPS in VATS. Staying in VATS for longer would obviously be nice, but I didn't really feel like it was that big of a deal, and a little bit more resistance was nice to have here, so ultimately that's what I went with, and sadly there was no room for a Class Freak on this occasion, so yeah, we just have to live with that, but it didn't really affect us too much in my opinion. Then we do have Speed Demon. Basically no downside for us. Hunger and Thirst growing slower doesn't affect us in any way, and yeah, extra movement speed is nice. Obviously reload speed is not a factor here, but just moving around faster is nice to have. And then we have Twisted Muscles. This is yet again an absolute no-brainer for this occasion. We are using a melee weapon, so 25% extra melee damage is nice to have, and chance to cripple, especially on a fast attacking weapon like this, is obviously nice. I'm not quite sure what the chance is. I can imagine it's not that high. It's not like you are crippling enemies left, right, and center like with a Enforcer build or something, but it's still nice to have, especially if you're going against tougher targets. It's helping keeping Scorch Beast on the ground once you are able to attack them and everything. So yeah, nice to have. And the debuff, yet again, doesn't affect us. Gun accuracy going down has no influence on our character since we're not using guns. And that leaves us with only Unstable Isotope, which is just a little bit of a flavor mutation here. Every now and then, when we are attacked in VATS, there's a chance that some mushroom cloud going off. And yeah, it was rather fitting for some kind of lab experiment, in my opinion. But it doesn't really do anything. It might even heal ghouls around you, but ultimately, I thought it was a lot of fun to use, and it's always nice to see when it happens. But yeah, neither necessary nor terrible, so just use it or not. Then we go over to our equipment, and here it is. Vampires, power attack damage, less VATS action point cost drill with the piercing drill bit. So yeah, not a whole lot to say here. Vampires, obviously a nice effect for such a fast attacking weapon. When it comes to damage buffing, obviously would be nice to have a little bit more damage, but ultimately Vampires was the way to go for me. Power attack damage takes care of that extra damage. It's just a 40% attack damage increase, in my opinion. So yeah, that's nice to have. And less VATS action point cost. Obviously a good choice here. Staying in VATS a little bit longer is nice, even though I said we are all about those short bursts, but yet it's nice to have, and there ultimately wasn't anything else I wanted to have. I mean, reduced weight or something would be absolutely unnecessary. As you can see there, it only weighs 0.88 pounds or whatever it is. So yeah, really, what else do you want to have here? One extra strength isn't the world here. We're probably talking about 2 extra damage with 1 extra strength. So yeah, that's what we wanted to have. Piercing drill bit, only modification for this weapon, but definitely a good one. Increases your damage a little bit, but more importantly, probably it increases your armor penetration. So obviously we wanted to have this. And the only other thing to mention about this weapon is probably the fact that its condition is pretty good, as I mentioned during the video. But yeah, we did this video twice. I just had to break up my first recording because I had to cough a little bit. So yeah, I repaired this with an improved repair kit, and what does that mean? I think it's 150% condition, and did this video here twice and lost like 20% condition or something. It's actually holding together pretty well. So yeah, if there's a build where you can run around without makeshift warrior, this would be it, in my opinion. Then going over the equipment, I already talked about it. Full set of AP refresh Thorn armor, no modifications whatsoever. Keep in mind, polymer would increase your resistances a lot. So yeah, polymer modification on everything. Even though we are using VATS and therefore the AP drain from your melee attacks is constant, every now and then you find yourself running out and maybe want to attack outside of VATS. In that situation, aerodynamic would be useful, but it ultimately isn't necessary here. Maybe the only other thing than polymer that I would actually think is necessary here is a dense chest piece that could help, and other than that, probably ultralight. But yet again, wasn't too important here. Then we do have a backpack, chemist modification, so yeah, not out of the ordinary, and it's the hazmat cooler backpack, which I felt like was rather fitting for this character. In terms of under armor, there was no debate here. I wanted to go with shielded Secret Service. I think there's not a single melee build here possible where something else than shielded Secret Service would be useful. Maybe if you want to do stealth or something, you could use something else, but yeah. 4 extra strength, 4 extra endurance, really good for a melee build. And lastly, we do have the straight jacket in the clean version. Obviously, you can use the dirty version as well. Probably looks even a little bit better, but yeah, I went with the clean version. And for those wondering, the plugs on my head, that's not a apparel piece, as you just saw. This is a haircut, which was a Fallout First exclusive, if I remember correctly. So yeah, obviously this has some serious experiment vibes going on, so that's why I wanted to have this here. And yeah, that leaves us with our perks, and to no one's surprise, strength is maxed out at 15. As I said, no surprise. Probably expected that. We do have all the gladiator perks maxed out. We do have incisor maxed out for armor penetration. So all of this just gives us extra damage. And lastly, this is the controversial bit, martial artist. If it doesn't increase swing speed, it obviously wouldn't be too useful here. So yeah, there's options. You could just go for blocker, which would be a very good perk here, or you could go with barbarian or whatever. I'm pretty sure you find something else if you don't want to use martial artist. As I said, I have a feeling that on the drill and the Ripper, it does affect your swing speed, but ultimately it wouldn't make too much of a difference. If there is a difference, it's not big. So yeah, that's why it's here. Use it or not, depending on you. Then we have perception. Obviously, this was our dump stat here. There's no use for perception. When you use melee in VATS, you have either 95% hit chance or nothing, no matter how good your perception is or something. So yeah, only one perk point here. I used it for glow sight. You can do whatever you like here. It really doesn't matter too much. So yeah, glow sight it is. A little bit of extra damage against glowing enemies. Nice to have. Then we do have endurance, which I wanted to have relatively high here. I do have life giver, ghoulish, adamantium skeleton, and fireproof. Fireproof, always a good pick. Adamantium skeleton, recently had a discussion with you guys in the comments. A lot of people don't use it because stimpaks are very common. You don't really need a adamantium skeleton. Using a stimpak every now and then to heal your limbs is not the end of the world. I basically like it because you're not getting staggered from being crippled, and you don't have to go through the stimpak animation so often, especially on a character using Vampire's effect, where you can basically not use stimpaks for a long time if you want. It's just a convenience thing. Then we do have Ghoulish. Now, there's certainly other picks you can go here, but I went with Ghoulish just because, yeah, fighting ghouls and so on really gets a lot more easier when you use Ghoulish. Fighting around a fissure site, like when we were attacking the Scorch Beast, you definitely get a lot of healing going on every now and then when you are in radiation. So it's just a convenient and situational perk, but when the situation is right, and it does occur every now and then, it's a nice thing to have. And lastly, we do have life cover. Just some extra maximum health is never a bad decision, in my opinion. A lot of people don't like it because it's a lot of investment for relatively little return, but ultimately, I still like it. If I want to if I want high endurance, endurance isn't exactly stuffed with necessary perks. So you really want to see what you can get that isn't a complete waste, and therefore life giver is a good choice in my opinion. Going over to Charisma, Strange in Numbers, and Tenderizer. So yeah, Strange in Numbers, first and foremost, we are alone on a team, so there's no effect from it. It doesn't have a downside though, and keep in mind, if you are on a public server, there's pretty much a 99% chance that whenever you join a team, someone will be mutated other than you, and that means extra damage from the Twisted Muscles mutation, a little bit more jump height and everything. So yeah, nice perk to have, only one perk point, really good choice, especially since you always want to be on a team. And Tenderizer, I don't have to talk about it, 10% multiplicative damage for every single target we attack, because we're not going to one-shot anything, is nice to have. Then we do have Makeshift Warrior, already talked about it. This could definitely be something you can get rid of here with the weapon. It holds together pretty easily, but it's convenient for me, and therefore I wanted to use it. Now, those 4 perk points could go into luck, and yeah, could be used more sensible in my opinion, but still, I went with Makeshift Warrior here. Then we do have Agility, not quite maxed out, but close to it. We do have Action Boy synergizing with our AP refresh armor. Probably too much, but still, I wanted to have action point refresh as fast as possible on this occasion. Then we do have Through Hiker. Now, this doesn't affect us at all at this point in time, just because we're not carrying anything in terms of buffs, but if you are doing this on a daily basis, it might be a good choice to actually use buffs when it comes to melee. There's a lot of readily available buffs that are easy to carry, and a lot of them are from food. So yeah, that's why I like to have Through Hiker on here, just to reduce the amount of weight you carry around. But another good pick would probably be Marathoner, just so you have more action points left whenever you attack an enemy after sprinting up to them. Keep in mind though, not necessary here. Then we do have White Knight. This I really like whenever I'm not doing a stealth build or not in power armor, and I do have room for it. I like to use White Knight. The condition of the Thorn armor is actually pretty good. It holds together pretty well, but increasing it by making it break 60% slower is a nice thing to have. We're constantly under attack, so yeah. And lastly, Adrenaline, yet again, like Tenderizer, it's always a good pick if you have the points for it. It never hurts. And then we do have Luck. We have Grim Reaper Sprint, better criticals, and Critical Savvy, holy trinity of VATS perks in my opinion. Now on this occasion you could actually make an argument that 4-Leaf Clover would be a better pick than Critical Savvy here, because our luck is relatively low at 11, so as it stands with Critical Savvy we get a crit on every third hit, so there's definitely room for improvement here. However, ultimately I really thought that I wanted to use VATS here for hack and slash. Putting crits on top of that was actually just a little bit of extra damage. It was never the biggest focus here to increase crits. I tried that with another character where I really went all in, getting a crit on every second hit, and the difference wasn't too crazy here. So ultimately, yeah, I really wanted to have more in terms of endurance and a little bit agility going on, rather than going all in with luck. So yeah, that's why this combination is here. Grim Reaper Sprint you could get rid of, but I still find that every now and then it procced and was nice and made the gameplay more fluent. And lastly, we do have Starch Genes. I don't really think I have to talk a lot about Starch Genes here. We want to keep our mutations. They are pretty big part of the build, so yeah, keeping them and not getting any new ones is the way to go here. And that leaves us with our legendary perks here. 4 of them pretty boring, just increasing our stats here, giving us access to more perk points to use, with the only exception being legendary strength, which is maxed out at 15 due to begin with, and then we do have legendary strength on top of that to give us 20 strength from the get-go without factoring in mutations and under armor. So yeah, that's nice to have, obviously on every single melee build. Then we do have hack and slash, centerpiece of the build. Obviously, would be nice to have it maxed out, proc it even more, but yeah, I've tested it on other builds with a maxed out hack and slash, and obviously, yeah, it's just what you would expect. It's just happening a little bit more, and therefore giving you even more damage. So this would be my next focus to really max out. But yeah, rank 3 already pretty great. 40% chance is good. As it happens a lot in Fallout 76, I think the chances are, yeah, it's a little bit weird. It doesn't feel like it's 40% chance, to be honest. It happens a lot, but not like nearly every second time. But yeah, still, good chance to have an explosion going on, and you saw it during the video. Not a lot to talk here. And lastly, taking one for the team. As you always want to be on a team here, this is probably one of the best legendary perks you could have. Yeah, just 20% more multiplicative damage after an enemy attacks you. You are in melee range, you will always be under attack, so there's a very good chance that enemies will take that debuff and take more damage from you. And obviously maxing this out would be the next priority. So if I had to start from the beginning, I would actually say taking one for the team should be your number 1 priority, hack and slash second one, and strength the last one. But this is just how it went, I already had access to the perks, and yeah, that's what's going on here. And yeah, that's everything. I hope you enjoyed the build, guys. Obviously, this is something where, no, I don't want to change my, my appearance. I just want to take a look at the thumbnail. Obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement in this build, but I just wanted to really explore the concept a little bit more of VATS and automatic melee weapons. I really find that it is a very fun playstyle. I would still prefer if the area of effect damage from these kind of perks like hack and slash would not come in terms of an explosion. That's my biggest gripe I have with it, just because it really feels a little bit odd just having these wacky explosions going on. They certainly could have done something more interesting in my opinion, swipe with the weapon or something, or even just don't do anything and just give us that area of effect damage. I would prefer over the explosions. but still, I don't want to complain. It's a great perk and a lot of fun. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video, and until then, bye guys.